Do you ever wonder what is intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number? The traditional beliefs, customs, and stories of a community. A community not part of the mainstream, unconventional, peripheral, or extreme. Part of an anthology, a published collection of poems or other pieces of writing. This is Esoteric Lore. I'm your host, Edward Aponte, where I push you to ponder the fringes of folklore. Picture the stereotypical pot smoker. Young, dazed, and confused. Marijuana has long been known for its psychoactive effects, which can include cognitive impairment. But new research published in June in Nature Medicine suggests the drug might affect older users very differently than young ones, at least in mice. Instead of impairing learning and memory as it does in young people, the drug appears to reverse age-related declines in the cognitive performance of elderly mice. Researchers led by Andreas Zimmer of the University of Bonn in Germany gave low doses of THC, marijuana's main active ingredients, to young, mature, and aged mice. As expected, young mice treated with THC performed slightly worse on behavioral tests of memory and learning. For example, after receiving THC, young mice took longer to learn where a safe platform was hidden in a water maze, and they had a harder time recognizing another mouse to which they had previously been exposed. Without the drug, mature and aged mice performed worse on the test than young ones did. But after the elderly animals were given THC, their performance improved to the point that they resembled those of young, untreated mice. The effects were very robust, very profound, Zimmer says. Other experts praised the study but cautioned against extrapolating the findings to humans. Quote, "This well-designed set of experiments shows that chronic THC pretreatment appears to restore a significant level of diminished cognitive performance in older mice, while corroborating the opposite effect among young mice," wrote Susan Weiss, director of the Division Research at the National Institute of Drug Abuse, who was not involved in the study, and in an email nevertheless said, while it would be tempting to presume the relevance of these findings to aging humans, further research will be critically needed. End quote. When the researchers examined the brain of the treated elderly mice for an explanation, they noticed that neurons in the hippocampus, a brain area critical for learning and memory, had sprouted more synaptic spines, the point of contact for communication between neurons. Even more striking, the gene expression pattern in the hippocampus of the THC-treated aged mice was radically different from that of untreated elderly mice. Quote, "This is something we absolutely did not expect. The older animals that received THC looked most similar to the young, untreated control mice," Zimmer says. The finding raises the intriguing possibility that THC and other cannabinoids might act as anti-aging molecules in the brain. Cannabinoids include dozens of biologically active compounds found in the cannabis sativa plant. THC, the most highly studied type, is largely responsible for marijuana's psychoactive effects. The plant compounds mimic our brain's own marijuana-like molecules called endogenous cannabinoids, which activate specific receptors in the brain capable of modulating neural activity. We know the endogenous cannabinoid system is very dynamic. It goes through changes over the lifespan, says Ryan McClellan, researcher who studied cannabis and stress at Washington State University, and was not involved in the current work. Research has shown that the cannabinoid system developed gradually during childhood, and then it blows up in adolescence. You see increased activities in its enzyme and receptors, McClellan says. Then as we age, it's on a steady decline. That decline in the endogenous cannabinoid system with age fits with previous work by Zimmer and others showing that cannabinoid associated molecules become more scant in the brain of aged animals. The idea is that as animals grow older, similar to in humans, the activity of the endogenous cannabinoid system goes down, and that coincides with signs of aging in the brain, Zimmer says. So we thought, what if we stimulate the system by supplying externally cannabinoids? The idea does not seem so outlandish, considering the role of cannabinoids in maintaining the body's natural balance, says Mark Ware, a clinical researcher at McGill University, who was not part of the study. Quote, "To anyone who studies the endocannabinoid system, the findings are not necessarily surprising because the system has homeostatic properties everywhere else we look, meaning its effects may vary depending on the situation. For example, a little marijuana may alleviate anxiety, but too much can bring on paranoid delusions. Likewise, cannabis can spark an appetite in cancer patients, but in other people may produce nausea. Thus, the detrimental effects seen in young brains in which cannabinoids are already plentiful may turn out to be beneficial in older brains that have a dearth of them. These chemicals also work to maintain order at the cellular level." Collins says, "We know that indigenous cannabinoid systems' primary function is to try to preserve homeostasis within the given brain circuit. it gives like an internal regulator. When there's too much activity, cannabinoids suppress activity to prevent neurotoxicity. Restoring that protein might help safeguard the brain against cellular stress that contributes to aging. A critical takeaway of this study is that they used low doses, where it says, considering that different doses could have entirely different effects, it would be difficult, if impossible, to translate the dose they used in mice to a human equivalent. But it's clear we're not talking about vast amounts. We don't know what would happen with high doses. Scientists do not exactly know how marijuana affects older adults, in part because they have focused squarely on younger people who are thought to be at greater risk. Because of the public health concerns, research has had a strong focus on marijuana's effect in adolescence. But although young people may make up the largest group of cannabis users, their rate of use has remained relatively stable over the past decade, even as the drug has become increasingly available. Meanwhile, use among seniors has skyrocketed as the drug's stigma has faded. A March study showed that in people aged 50 to 64, marijuana use increased nearly 60% between 2006 and 2013. And among adults older than 65, the drug use jumped by 250%. The researchers do not suggest seniors should rush out and start using marijuana. I don't want anyone to encourage anyone to use cannabis in any form based on this study, Zimmer says. Older adults looking to medical cannabis to relieve chronic pain and other ailments are concerned about this side effects, where it says they want to know, does this cause damage to my brain? Will it impair my memory? If these data holds up in humans, it may suggest that THC isn't likely to have a negative impact if you're using the right dose. Now the challenge is thrown down to clinical researchers to study that in people. If you like this video, please subscribe, share, and give us a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. See you next time.